Welcome back to another episode of Spirit of an Athlete. I'm your host, Amanda Smith, and on this episode, I invite Kimberly Jarman, who is a mental performance coach and CrossFitter that got long COVID and is hoping to get back to CrossFitting. We all know she will because she's armed with her mindset, neuroscience, and her knowledge of biochemistry. She uses these three things with her clients to help them live the life they were meant to lead. I share in this episode my journey with long COVID and what I used to get back into powerlifting once again. I know Kimberly is going to take this information back, do some studying, and find out if that is the right fit for her. I truly hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks for listening. Kimberly Jarman, thank you so much for saying yes to being on Spirit of an Athlete with me and help us understand your journey as an athlete, as a mental performance coach, and someone who has experienced a chronic illness that changed the way you had to see yourself.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on here, Amanda. I'm excited to be on here. I'm an athlete. I always will be an athlete. So to talk to other athletes, like, let's go, ladies.
I love it. Oh my gosh. It's honestly, I'm meeting so many strong female athletes and then finding out their grit, what they've experienced. So for you, what sport were or are you in? And what was the chronic health condition that showed up for you?
So I drink all of the Kool-Aid for the CrossFit culture, the whole thing, the whole gallon.
Mhm.
So
That
I'm a
sounds cool.
CrossFitter. I still identify as a CrossFitter. I have owned a CrossFit gym. Like, I'm telling you, when I say drink the Kool-Aid, like
All
the
in.
whole thing. Yeah. So
Heck
yeah,
yeah.
I'm a CrossFit athlete now.
Okay, so does that mean you have gone to the competitions as an athlete or as a viewer of the athletes? Do you know some CrossFit people?
I do. I do.
So drop
So
some names.
yes, I went as a participant in 2000, or not a participant, as a what do you call them? As a fan. I went
Fan,
to watch
yeah.
it in 2014. 2015, I went as a volunteer employee. So I worked the games in 2015. Yes. Have I met Greg Glassman? Have I talked? Has his sister called me personally? Yes. Do I know Annie Thor's daughter? Yes.
I love it. My niece and her husband, my nephew, are both CrossFit athletes. He's now moved on to Team USA Olympic lifting, and she continues to drink the Kool-Aid as a CrossFit coach, as a CrossFit participant. She went to not regionals, or is it regionals? Uh, Almost the show. Whatever the competition is right before you get to the main show. And then, of course, they've been to all of the competitions as fans and as vendors. So I'm familiar with the CrossFit world. I'm also familiar with how the CrossFit world can be extreme.
I mean, maybe it attracts that personality type.
Yeah, yeah, that like super driven, I wanna be an athlete for the rest of my life kind of person. Is that how you
Yeah.
identify?
Yeah, for sure. I'm intense. That is a synonym that is or not yeah, whatever. A pronoun? No, not a pronoun, whatever the word is.
Adjective.
Adjective, there we go. That is an adjective that is regularly handed to me. You're very intense.
I am too, but I never got sucked into CrossFit. I went to powerlifting because I like to lift a lot of heavy things. But when it comes to CrossFit, it's really you're a dynamic athlete. You have to be able to do things like gymnastics. You have to be able to do endurance, not just strength. You have to be able to do Olympic weightlifting. Am I missing any of the things that y'all do?
Yep, you nailed it. Yeah. You have to have
Yeah.
that cardiovascular too, right? You gotta be able to run.
Yeah, that endurance piece, which
Yeah.
for the bigger athletes tends to be a problem, but for the smaller athletes tends to be no problem. But then vice versa, the smaller athletes tend to struggle with the strength portion, which my
Yep.
niece is a whopping 5 foot ish. So she's tiny, but she's a little powerhouse. And when it came to doing those bigger lifts, those Olympic weightlifting lifts, she really had to push herself to a new level because she was so tiny. Whereas her
Yeah.
husband, he's 6'2" and has zero problem moving big weight, obviously, if he's competing now with Team USA for Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah. Love about CrossFit, it levels the playing field. Then we have, like, wall balls. I'm probably gonna do better in wall balls than the shorter athletes, but the shorter athletes are gonna eat my lunch and handstand walks or whatever, right? So I love
Exactly.
how it just levels the playing field for all of us.
It really does. And I truly truly love that there's this uh, award or recognition that the fittest athlete is a CrossFitter. I completely and totally agree because, and she's amazing. uh, why can't I think of her name? It's Tiara T.
Oh, Tia Toomey, right?
Thank you.
Tia Claire Toomey. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I mean, and coming back after she's had a baby, I'm like, "Sister, preach. Yes, you're the fittest athlete on the planet, the end."
yeah, yeah.
'Cause she
Back-to-back
can.
champion multiple
Exactly.
times. I think 5, what, she's won 5 or 6.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely stunning as a human
yeah,
specimen of what a CrossFit athlete can do, and really a demonstration of their mental resolve as well. But let's go back to you. Let's go
yeah,
back to you, the CrossFitter,
sure.
and when things started to shift for you in this realm of the world. You still call yourself a CrossFitter, you are still of that mentality, but something happened to you that shifted
Yeah.
things.
So I became a CrossFit athlete in August of 2012, and then, stayed. I was consistent, right? Like, I've gone up and down with whatever injuries, but I've consistently been an athlete, and then, uh, 2020 comes around, COVID breaks out. I get COVID for the first time January 2021. Um, it takes me 3 months to get my taste and smell back, right? I couldn't it just it took my legs out from underneath me cardiovascular wise, right? I just couldn't I didn't have the capacity. So I got advice from fellow CrossFit athletes because 'cause we're never gonna leave the gym. Like, I've had surgery and literally showed Murph. Are you familiar with Murph? It's
Yes,
Memorial
totally.
Day, right?
Memorial Day
So I'm
week?
gonna back up a little bit. This is the resiliency that I feel like we have. Like, I had shoulder surgery. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, Murph came about. I showed up with my sling. I tightened that sucker down. I am not gonna miss Murph.
You
So
are actually
I'm at
the
there.
crap out of that.
I just ran my mile with my sling, and then I did my air squats, and then I did one-arm push-ups, and then I, like, did GHD sit-ups for my pull-ups because you can't
Yeah, there's
modify that.
no one-arm
Yeah.
pull-up.
Well, like, I'm not resilient, but after COVID, I just, like, I couldn't make that comeback, and there was CrossFit athletes because I was back in the gym were telling me, like, "Dude, you better go, like, at least 80% for, like, 6 months because this is gonna take you a while." So I did, dialed it down. I wasn't recovering very well. Then I got COVID again in December of 2021. Took some time off a little bit, probably like a month, came back, and it was even worse this time. Like, I would do a workout and then I would be sick for like a whole week.
Mhm.
Um, and then I realized that anytime I pushed my heart rate over 160, like, that's when I was getting sick. So then I stayed at the CrossFit gym, but I started doing my own programming where I just focused on strength to cut out the intensity. And that became too much where I couldn't do it, I wasn't recovering, and then I was getting viral infections every month around, like, it correlated with my period.
Yeah.
Um, but I would get a new viral infection. So then I had to leave at that point. So I left CrossFit in what would that have been? October of 2022. Um, I have not been able to work out since, because every time I do, I get like it's how do I describe it? What it ends up doing is it pushes my heart rate anytime I get above 160. My
Mhm.
body goes into that stress state, so I already have a lot of, cytokines going on because of this virus, but
Yep.
then if you're doing strength stuff, you're releasing mitokines.
Yep.
Um, so then that pushes me in a state of where I'm dumping cortisol and adrenaline basically 24/7, and so I can't sleep and I'm inflamed. My
Yep.
resting heart rate won't drop.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, I develop a migraine as well, and just feel like those flu-like symptoms for 4 to 5 days.
After a workout.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's still going on to this day.
Yes. I
Oh,
get to walk now.
hey!
I go
Yeah.
on walks. That's what kinda
Mhm.
athlete I am now, is a walker.
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating how you have to shift? So I had we call this long haulers, right? We've
Mhm.
got a name for it. They came up with it probably about a year after COVID was, officially on board here in the United States. And, there was a lot of research that came out around people who were complaining about it lasting longer than the typical round of COVID. Even though we weren't going to the hospital, we weren't dying,
Yeah.
we were experiencing unexplainable
Yep.
issues. And, for me, I had no taste and I had taste, but I had no smell. And what ended up happening is my taste buds changed because they're so closely related in the nervous system that they didn't have a choice. But I didn't have smell for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So 2023, I finally got my smell back. And the time that time frame, most of the time I was smelling burning flesh and oranges.
I've heard that.
Mhm.
That's not yeah.
Not pleasant. Not
No.
pleasant. And there were inklings of and moments of me being able to smell things, and I remember celebrating. I could smell chocolate. Thank God. Hallelujah. And there's this level of sadness around smell because you don't enjoy food anymore. You just consume it literally to that because you know you need to. And
Mhm.
developing that love for food again. I was a foodie before that. Developing
Okay.
your love for food again takes some time when you have been in this chronic state for so long. Okay, I don't normally do this on a podcast, but I'm gonna do this because I'm getting the messages that I need to. Um, do you give me permission to read your body, your
Sure,
energy
absolutely.
body, and tap into some of the stuff that's showing up because I can feel your heart. And it's like that was the one thing and like spirit's like, "Yo, woman, you need to check in with her and talk to her about what's going on in your heart
Yeah,
because
for sure.
it's something we can change, we can reverse." I work with a lot of people who have had long haulers because I've been there and because I was the one telling my doctor, "Hey, please look into artemisinin. This is one of the undercover remedies." And it there are plenty of papers out now about using artemisinin not only for long haulers COVID, but also for COPD, for other chronic health issues when it comes to the lungs and the immune system and the tie between the two. When I told my doctor that this was one of the options because she was aware of quercetin and how that helps and but she wasn't seeing magnificent shifts.
Mhm.
And I told her about artemisinin and she started studying it, looking into papers for me because she's a doctor. And and what showed up was, yes, let's try it tell me, give me the feedback, tell me what's going on. And I'm going to put a couple of other people on this trial as well. And so I told her, this is the milligrams that I use, and this is when I'm using it. And knowing, like, you use it like a probiotic, take it late at night so that your body can absorb it and you don't have
Mhm.
food interfering with it, so that it actually has an opportunity to make it into the gut and then out into the rest of the system. And what it does is it pushes COVID back into your system so that your immune system can actually fight it.
So it's pushing it off spike protein. Is that what you're
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And so because your body is now healthy enough to be able to allow your immune system to fight back without
Mhm.
it trying to shut down, this would actually be something that would work for you.
Yeah.
And as soon as I brought it up, like this heart pain that I'm feeling, s- it it it, it waffled on the intensity. It went away and then it came back and then it went away and then it came back. Walking spiked my heart rate to right around 165 is where I was hanging out. And my resting heart rate before COVID was anywhere between 55 and 65. So that
Yeah.
was my resting heart rate. My resting heart rate during long COVID, during the 5 months of intensity that I had, my resting heart rate was right around 85 to 95,
Yeah.
which for most people, that's a walking heart rate. So I was
No, yeah.
always walking. And, I know we talked about this in your pre-interview. You went to a heart doctor and they actually listened because you had a boatload of data to back it up.
Mhm. Mhm.
I went to a heart doctor and he laughed me out of the room. He was like, "You're a healthy human. I don't know why you're here wasting my time." Literally told me that. And I was just asking him to monitor. Give me some monitoring so that I can see what is going on, because I knew nothing was right. I was a climber and a power lifter, and all of those things had to shift for me as well, because anytime I'd put my hands on a wall and think about moving 2 steps up, my heart rate would skyrocket to 190.
Yep.
If
Yeah.
I tried to lift weights at all, I was hovering in the 175 range. And that was, lifting my warm-up set. So,
Yeah.
noticing for you that it was affected by your period tells me that it really wanted to attack your endocrine system, y- the hormone specifically tied to your period, um, estrogen, especially. We're seeing that that's super common, that it wants to go after estrogen.
Yeah.
And when we're on our period, estrogen drops. So it
Mhm.
gives COVID an opportunity to push into the system more
Mhm.
because it doesn't have that estrogen to attach to.
Yeah, the protective layer of it. Yeah, I
Exactly.
was in a summit and they were talking about the MTHFR gene, right? And how the MTHFR gene, in fact, impacts the HPA axis, right? And the
Mm.
HPA axis is in charge of what hormones, fertility, uh, our immune system,
Mhm.
and neurotransmitters, our mental health.
Yep.
Right, and if you have like, if you're positive for the H or the MTFHR gene, you're more susceptible to long COVID. So it
Mm.
makes sense, like, the correlation with all this, right? Because in my story, my journey, right, like, I'm infertile. I've never been able to get pregnant. I have struggled with with depression and anxiety since I got my first period. And then my immune system. I've been an athlete my entire life, Amanda. Like
Mhm.
I played basketball, played softball, I ran cross country in college, but yet just chronically tired.
Yep.
And like I'm pretty sure I probably picked up mono somewhere in college and just didn't know it, and then I've never been able to clear it.
Mhm.
Like, I
Which is
have
probably Epstein-Barr, that version of mono.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
a really great person to and this still cracks me up to this day because I don't believe everything that he puts out, but the medical medium has some
Okay.
really phenomenal protocols when it comes to Epstein-Barr and how Epstein-Barr affects the body. And I
Mhm.
was turned on to that, in 2021 and read what he knows, that download that he got, and it makes sense. And the protocols that he has put out for that makes sense. And it makes sense how the liver is affected. And the liver is really the seat of hormones. That's one of the centers that sends the signal to the rest of the body. Hey, we need this hormone right now.
Yep.
It just,
Yeah.
that correlation, yeah, pretty high. I had Epstein Barr in my junior year of high school.
Mhm.
And the the havoc that it wreaked on me during that time, I lost a ton of weight. People were like, "Oh, you're anorexic now?" And I was like, "No, I just have Epstein-Barr. I have mono." "Oh, just eat more." Didn't matter how much I ate. My body wasn't using that energy.
Right.
It didn't
Yeah.
recognize that energy. And that was also one of the times when a lot of my gut issues showed up. And, the brain gut axis is a phenomenal axis to wreak havoc on your mental game as well.
Yeah,
And
when I was in college, I was running cross country, and I was like, I mean, we're all athletes, right? Like,
Mhm.
we're majority eating healthy, we're drinking the water, we're exercising. We are not the humans that are stopping at McDonald's every day for dinner, right? Like, that's just not, like, who we are. And I was a cross country athlete, and I'm like, "Dude, like, I am exercising, I'm eating healthy and drinking the water, and I am so tired." So I go to the doctor, and he's like, "You just need some more vitamin D and some zinc." Didn't test me for anything, just was like, "Yeah, you need some more zinc, some more vitamin D," and then
and
off I
yes,
go.
I'm sure the other piece of that puzzle was you just need to rest more.
No,
Thanks.
that's what my when I got COVID and I had to go to a rheumatologist, that was her answer to me. Well, it's people like, literally quoting her, "It's people like you that just exercise too much and don't know when to stop that, like, this stuff happens to, and you guys need to learn how to rest." What?
Okay.
So now when I roll into a doctor's office, my first question is, "Do you exercise?" Because it's like, we are not gonna connect if you are not a non-exerciser. I am not gonna stand here and take your judgment.
Yeah, I'm sorry you experienced that, but that's part of our medical system, and the fact that they don't have it's they don't have time. They don't have enough time in their schedules to really dive into what their patients are experiencing, and it's
And they don't have
unfortunate.
education background. Like, if we look at preventative medicine and we look at, like, supporting the body for optimal health, they don't have the education to back that. They're taught acute care, symptom management. So
Usually,
it puts them in
mostly.
a yeah, it puts them in an awkward situation where, like, I won't use the analogy, they're standing there with their dick in their hand, like, I don't know
Mhm.
what to tell you, and that feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I shied away from Western medicine for that very reason, because they wanted to treat the problem and not prevent, further problems, and it was very defensive and not offensive, and it became offensive that's how we were
Yeah,
doing things. So I
yeah,
definitely shied away. We're seeing a trend now where doctors are starting to educate themselves on how we can be more into the preventative medicine, which I'm loving seeing that trend. We're, 5 steps behind where we need to be, especially post COVID,
yeah,
right? Because now everybody's back to, "Oh my gosh, we have to react to what's going on with COVID."
yeah, and I wanna share with your I think but I went back to go over my echocardiogram and my stress test that I requested,
Mhm.
and I know that I'm fortunate that my business partner is a licensed naturopathic doctor, and we went into my appointment, and he was like, "It looks good. Like, your echo looks good, your stress test looks good, like, you look healthy," um, and, like and I was like Part of that is because I haven't worked out, like, in 3 months, like, I've attempted 0 exercise, like, that's part of the reason why I feel that now, and, I was like, I just wanted to make sure everything was okay with my heart because I know there's a correlation between COVID and congestive heart failure. 'Cause I don't wanna keep exercising and create more damage, and he was like, "No, you're good. You're good to go back to working out. You're healthy, but I can give you a beta blocker if that would make you feel better." And I'm like, "Why do I need a beta blocker?" "Well, just, like, for peace of mind, so you can just feel better." And Carmen is looking at me like, "Beta blockers make athletes sick."
Yes.
Right? So then we get out of the office and she's looking over my echo and my stress test, and she goes, "Well, in your echo, there's" and she's always looking for optimal health, right? So she's gonna be nitpicky. She's
Yes.
like, "Well,
Good.
your mitral valve has a little bit of calcification on it. That's probably from a prior viral infection. We can address that. And by the way, you have, a pericardium that goes around our heart. It's supposed to fit
Yep.
like a glove." She's like, "Well, you have inflammation and a little bit of fluid around that." And then
Yes.
if I look at your stress test, once you hit 170 to 180 on that, Kim, I can't remember the acronym. You might know, Amanda. Um, my heart is when it's beating, it then gets the signal to beat again
Mhm.
immediately. So it never fully relaxes. So it hits that two beat, then may relax,
Mental.
right? Which is creating that like tightness in my chest and a panic. Like I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. And then
but
it
yet,
stirs the mental side of things too. It's that it's us responding to what's
yeah.
going on and then constantly being in a state of "Oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna die, and I'm not the human I used to be."
Yeah, but if I'd have listened to him, I was good to
You
go
were good
back
to
to
go.
working out. So this
Ah!
is to tell your audience, like, you guys, if you're athletes, most of you know your body. And, like, for the longest time over this journey of coaching me, I have felt like a hypochondriac. But what
Yes.
I've learned is I'm just really in tune with my body, and I know that something is not right, and it's my responsibility to never take no as an answer. I am just gonna continue to be relentless until I get the answers and I get the solutions I want so I can go back to CrossFit. So I just wanna encourage all the people listening to this, like, you know your body, keep demanding tests, reports, and keep changing doctors until you find one that's gonna give you the answers you want.
Mhm. So I have a quiz coming out called the Gutsy Chick Quiz, and you are definitely my brainster. So there's 4 archetypes. There's the bruiser, which you kinda hover in that area too. There's
Mhm.
the brainster, the chillster, and the one I always forget, the stickler.
Mhm.
And you are definitely the brainster. You're gonna do due diligence to make sure that you're getting the answers that you feel you need.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that that is you because there's these other people who are the bruiser is gonna just bully her way through. She's just gonna keep pushing. She's just gonna keep going and try again, try again, try again, right? And then the chillster, they're just gonna hurry up and wait for it to change. They just chill.
Yeah.
And then there's the stickler who's gonna listen to every doctor and every diagnosis that the doctors give them and go, "Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm gonna do that thing." And if you were the stickler in this particular situation, you would have been back to working out and ignoring the fact that things weren't feeling completely kosher in your body. I think, you're definitely still experiencing the swelling around the heart. This was the thing that I brought up to the cardiologist that I went to, and he just looked at me and goes, "You're fine." And I was like, "You haven't done any tests other than take my pulse." And he was like, "You're fine." And I was like, "Wow, okay, so the pain that I'm feeling, can you explain that?" "Yeah, it's called muscle soreness."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "Yes, my heart is a muscle and it's sore, but there are no nerve endings around my heart where I should be able to feel my heart. So how come I'm feeling in my heart?" And he was like, "It's probably intercostals and it's probably your pectoral muscles." And I was like, "I know what pectoral soreness feels like. I know what my intercostals feel like. That's the area
Right,
between your ribs.
right,
It's not that.
right.
But that was me getting dismissed from the Western model and me getting in my car and crying and
Mhm,
saying, "They don't wanna listen to me. They don't wanna help
mhm.
me. I'm gonna have to do this myself." And
Yep,
me totally being okay with that because I'm a brainster/bruiser. I am both of those on my archetypes. So I went and did the research and started digging in, and artemisinin was the thing that I fell upon, and thank God I did because it's the thing that I use now to prevent it. It's the thing that I use now to help people who have long COVID get out of it, and it's will be my recommendation over and over again unless you have certain things like you're on high blood pressure medicine because you have high blood pressure, you have high blood sugar. We don't use artemisinin for those types of people, but everybody else can use it.
yeah.
And there's always that inner testing and knowing to see, okay, is this going to work for you? I had COVID. I've had COVID now. Uh, gosh, 6 times? 6
Wow.
times.
That at 3. 6 isn't wow, girl.
And it's because the immune system's broken down and
Mhm.
it's we're more susceptible.
Yep.
That's truly where it lands, and it was funny because I could actually go through and recognize, okay, I had the original version, that was the one that gave me long COVID, then I had
Mhm,
Delta, then I had Omicron, why didn't we call it Omega? Uh, and then I had the next the 2023 version that we didn't put a label on, we just called it's the 2023, so now it's COVID 2023. And I had that twice. And those were basically like back to back rounds of it. And two different variants where one of them was more like a head cold and the other one was more like the flu, where I felt sick to my stomach as well as all the other things, and it was interesting to be able to go through and categorize and know, okay, well, I've got that version, and I don't watch the news, so it wasn't like something that I was digging around trying to find that information on. It was more, okay, what are you experiencing? What are you experiencing? And what are you experiencing? And gathering the data from the populace of people who were experiencing COVID throughout this time frame. And luckily it's decreased immensely in 2024 so that we don't hear all of these fun cases and the news coming out and saying, "Oh, we've got another variant we need to be paying attention to." Things like that that of course create stress and
mhm.
also make us think that we're hypochondriacs.
Yeah. Yeah, and then especially be in this situation where it's, like, creating stress and we're, like, feeling like hypochondriacs, and my primary coping mechanism was exercising, and now
Yes,
that's
now you
stripped
can't.
from me, right? So how do you
Yes.
navigate this when you're dealing with the stress and fear of this, and coping mechanism has now been just stripped away from you,
Mhm.
and part of your identity's been taken away, you know? So that
Yes.
was also just, like, such a hard part of this journey.
Yes. So you became a walker.
I do not identify as a walker.
I do. I do now
I'm
because I know that
chronically
that's one of
warming
the ways
up
I can
for
do it.
CrossFit. Just chronically warming up on these walks until I can get back to CrossFit.
That yeah, that was my perspective as well. I was a walker, which I'm not the type of person who likes cardio. I'll do it because I know I need to do it to warm up, or I do it because I know that I need to build my cardiovascular strength. But I'm a power sport person. I've always been a power sport person. So my tendency is always to go toward the power sports. And I know that my nervous system loves heavy loads, which is why
Mhm.
I'm a power lifter. Also a yoga instructor, so a yogi at the same time, but I didn't get the loading that I needed in yoga unless I was upside down.
Mm.
Then I could load my shoulders and I was thrilled about that. But there's definitely this like I want to get back to that. and
Mhm.
this constant, I want to get back to that thing that I was doing. I'm gonna use that as my carrot.
Mhm.
And then finding out, so I started working with a strength and conditioning coach, Barrett Smith, who's been on the podcast. He helped me understand how to unwind my nervous system and get me to a place where my nervous system could finally say, "Yes, you can go and lift heavy again." And it
Mhm.
took 6 months of just focusing on little tasks to unwind my nervous system. And one of the apps that I recommend to people is NeuroFit, because
Yeah.
it's all about nervous system regulation. You do it for 8 weeks. They give you a membership for 12 weeks, but the goal is that you're consistent through the 8 weeks, and you really start to see a difference with it at 5 weeks.
Mhm.
And with Barrett, we were seeing a difference the day that I was working with him. It was absolutely immediate, and I loved seeing that. So I can't stress enough for you, since I'm hanging out in your body right now, find someone to help you unwind your nervous system before you really get back to the CrossFit. But you definitely you've still got some lingering COVID in your system that needs to be kicked out.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would
Yeah.
say do a round of artemisinin, and if you're interested in how to do that, I am more than willing to share that with you off air.
Yeah, yeah.
But doing a round of artemisinin, talk to your functional medicine doctor about it, and move your body through that, and then start to work on the nervous system piece, because your nervous system has been through the ringer
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
years.
I mean,
We're on year
yeah,
4.
for years. Like, that's what I learned on this journey. It's like it became this, like, culmination of, like, me being sick, all the trauma from the decades coming out to the top with no mechanism to deal with it, right?
Mhm.
Nervous system, realizing that my nervous system has been dysregulated the majority of my life, like, I've lived in fight or flight, and it became normal, right?
Yes.
Um, and so then that's what this last year of work, 2023 was, like, I hired a coach, trauma coaching, right? Just to work on that piece of it, and then, uh, a bodywork guy who does, it's really hard to describe what Cody does. He does, like, lymphatic drainage, and then he uses Be Activated to, like, reset the nervous system. So I go see
Oh,
him every week. Um, so it's just been, like, this multi-layered approach. So I know now when I go back to CrossFit, because I will,
yes, you will.
um,
I
I
agree.
will. Uh, I think it's gonna be a fun experience. It was always fun, but there was always that drive behind it to, like, prove myself, to prove my worth, to prove my enoughness, right?
Yes.
And I just think that component I've done such a much better job of, like, tending to and healing, so then it just gets to be, like, it just gets to be fun.
Yay. Oh, that's how it's supposed to be. That's I was the exact same way. I was saying to myself, "I'm gonna get back to powerlifting. It's going to happen. I'm going to compete again." And right now I'm working towards an August competition, and we're at the end of June, so I'm diving into my powerlifting cycle at this point. And whew, it's nice to be back, but at the same time, there's this mental resolve that you have to get into when you're doing these kinds of sports,
Mhm.
because you're lifting heavy weights, and one critical move, and that could be, a showstopper for you. And it's the same with CrossFit. Exactly the same. These are more extreme sports, which cracks me up because I had more injuries as a softball player than I have as a power lifter, but I also did it longer. So, eh. But you're going to get back to it. It's definitely still there. And I can't wait to see what that looks like for you and how that shows up. Because as a mental performance coach, holy cow, that has got to be all of these lessons that you're gaining, I am certain you use with the work that you do. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I like I told you before, like, we dive into, like, most of us wanna reach our full potential, but we get in our own way. So, like, I dove into, like, what is actually required to be in place for us to reach our full. We have to have a regulated nervous system, right? We have to, have that performance mindset, that success growth mindset. We have to be rejection and failure resilient. We have to have self-confidence, and we have to be neurochemically and hormonally balanced.
My gosh, yes.
So that's what I built my practice on, taking all these components in, and I only help women, so I only coach women. We address all these things so then they can, like, optimize their ability to think clearly, their ability to think at a higher level and use that prefrontal cortex, their ability to regulate their emotions, feel what they wanna feel, when you feel it, and be able to move the negative emotions that we feel it. The ability to face failure and rejection and not be completely dysregulated in your nervous system, and not let the nervous system hijack us and be not only functioning in our lower brain, right? And then Dr. Carmen and I test our ladies' neurotransmitters, their hormones, and their to optimize that through food or supplement, just so these women can, like, take control and power back in their lives and be able to show up how they want to in their lives.
I love this. Yes. Thank you for doing that kind of work. Thank you for supporting women in that level of really fully understanding themselves, not just from like, here's a couple of mental tools, but really understanding it from all the different angles that you work from. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah.
S- Let's talk about some of your offerings
Okay.
so that people know where they can find you, but also two, what are some of the things that you share with people?
Yeah. So I have a free masterclass and it's less than 30 minutes. I think it's like 28 minutes, which is good for me because I'm fairly long winded. Um, and it's how to develop a mindset to reach your full potential. So I dive into each of these ones and like how actually like the tool to develop a mindset. It's not one of those master classes where I'm like teasing you and then give you nothing because those drive me insane.
Right?
So I actually give you the tool that I use to coach through mindset and like how to like manage our mind in that free webinar. So you just have to jump on any of my socials. So Kimberly Jarman Coaching on Instagram. The link is in the bio. You can find me on TikTok. Um, and my website, kimberlyjarmancoaching.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those will all be in the show notes, you guys, so you can check those out as well as the mindset to reach your full potential masterclass. I love that you specifically state that this isn't a teaser. This
Drove
is
me
a I'm
insane.
yes, exactly. I'm going to give you the damn tool. So that you're not wasting your time and then getting pitched for something else. Blah.
Right.
It's the worst.
Right.
That's how I feel when I'm doing those kinds of things too. I'm gonna give you ways to succeed, and then, of course, I'm gonna share, like, "Hey, here's how you can work with me further if this really resonated with you, and if this is all you needed, then I'm happy that I could help affect your life in a positive way." It's how I
Absolutely.
always see it.
Absolutely, that's time. And I'm kind of a little spicy, obviously. I just like every time I watch those webinars and like they just do the teaser, I literally want to email them back and be like, you fucking wasted my time. I cannot get this 30 minutes of my life back due to you.
Yep, yep, yep. What's funny is what I've started doing with those is going and checking reviews and checking to see what other people are saying about it so that I know whether I'm going to waste my time. But then I think about it and I'm like, oh, well, I'm spending time researching whether it's worth it for me to watch this thing.
No,
Obviously, don't do it.
that's so
That's
awesome.
where I've gotten to in life is it's just not worth it anymore. I don't have time. Unless it's really something I know that is going to play a phenomenal role in helping me move forward. And that's
Yeah.
what I love about my podcast. I'm
Yeah.
inviting women on and sometimes men, but mostly women on the podcast to share their magic because I know they are like me in integrity, and they're going to share how to move forward in life and make your life better in some way, shape, or form as an athlete. So, Kimberly,
Mm.
thank you for being one of those people and
Oh,
sharing that with us and giving us an opportunity to see what's going on in your world as an athlete, but also how you help athletes better their world.
yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Spirit of an Athlete podcast. If you're struggling with your own gut issues and want more direction, you can get an initial body scan from Amanda at bodywhisperhealing.com. In 20 minutes, you can find out what's wrong, get clarity, map the path forward, and get on track to get back in your game. If this episode hits the spot, please let us know by rating, reviewing, and sharing it with a friend. Subscribe now to hear more inspiring stories from other female college athletes who overcame their health issues. Want more, Amanda? Get inspired by finding more at bodywhisperhealing.com.